No, I've got just a couple of health-related questions. There's a story we're running today on muscular dystrophy. It's a case study. I went and met a lady who lives in Pontypridd, and she battled for 20 years before she was accurately diagnosed. And what the charity who she's had help from is saying is that a lot of doctors in Wales, I think it's 3/4 of doctors, say they don't have enough training or knowledge on the disease to be able to recognise it. And therefore people, they're suffering because they aren't being diagnosed. Unless it's genetic, they're also passing on to their children because they don't know they have it. I mean, what are your views on this? Do you think that if that's happening, that doctors should have more training, or is it a case of this, rather than, GP should be able to refer onto a more specialist carer, or...?
Well, it's a very important point that you've raised, and this goes to the heart of the need for specialist commissioning in the health service. Often GPs don't spot some of the rarer and more complex conditions immediately because they don't see so many cases coming through the surgery door. So it is about building awareness of the condition and the symptoms of the condition, and ensuring that for patients who may be at risk, that they can be referred very quickly to a specialist referral centre. And as a former health secretary in England, I know that the challenges of ensuring that those terrible and debilitating conditions are identified as early as possible. And the important thing is, if you can spot them early, obviously you can improve people's quality of life enormously. So this is a real journey where we must improve the awareness of these complex conditions in primary care.
Okay, and just one other briefly that my editor mentioned to me before I came in, something out today suggesting that pregnant women should now be using aspirin to prevent preeclampsia. A lot of the time pregnant women get mixed signals. 1 minute, we should be guzzling red wine, next minute we shouldn't be touching a drop of alcohol. Do you have any views on that in particular? Or I know it's quite a specific subject, but I just thought if you did have any thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, I always was kind of struck by this as health secretary, the kind of blizzard of health advice that comes people's way. One day you can say, do, as you say, do a glass of wine is good for you. The next day somebody else is saying, don't touch it at all. I think it is a complicated world these days where all kinds of advice is coming out for all kinds of reasons. Some of them offering advice with a vested interest, of course. And I would always say to people, look at the views of the Royal Colleges or the Chief Medical Officer here in Wales, and base your behaviour on the back of that. It's a world where there's just so much conflicting advice, and I think it's important to listen to the experts, but also do what feels right. And I think when it comes to drinking, I think the right thing is not to drink at all during pregnancy, and certainly not to smoke at all during pregnancy. I think let's keep the messages simple and help people have a healthy pregnancy.
Okay, and just a slightly more light-hearted question for our friends up in the Northwest. The World Cup. Why should we get the World Cup? I think at the moment the FIFA inspectors are in Manchester today, apparently, having a look round there. I mean, for you, what difference do you think it would make to the country if it was to come here? Yeah,
well, I think it would be wonderful for football across the UK, not just in England. It would be a brilliant moment. Why should we get it? Well, the worst thing we could do is kind of claim, oh well, it's our turn, 66 and all that, and I think that's just a kind of a dead argument, basically. My argument would be, and this is when I was culture secretary, I said to them, this is how you should run the bid. It's because of the power of English football around the world. If you go to Africa or go to Asia, you see the huge passion for English football that there is. And I believe if they gave the World Cup to England, we could really use that status as host nation to take more of the power of English football to Africa particularly, and lift the standard of sport, but also give young people something to inspire them in those developing parts of the world. So for me, it's not about what can the world do for England, it's what can England do for the world, and what can England do for football if we were to be given the World Cup. And it's a slightly different way of looking at things, but that for me is how we would win it.
Okay, and just again in a nutshell, why should people in Wales in particular support your campaign?
Well, people should support my campaign because I am about rebuilding Labour from the bottom up. It really is time to put the People's Party back on the side of the people, and Labour needs a leader that ordinary people can relate to. You know, that when they look in the House of Commons and they see Cameron and Clegg and they think, well, those two haven't got a clue what my life is like. I think they want to see a Labour leader who does understand what their life is like, and that is what I can offer the Labour Party, a leader whose feet are very firmly on the ground and who understands what people's lives are like and has some big ideas for the future of our country. And I believe aspirational socialism speaks to the times. I think most people do want to come together and help each other out and pull together as a society and help the most vulnerable in society. But at the same time, we want everybody to get on in life and be the best that they can be. And Labour's got to get back to some solid values of philosophy, what we're all about. New Labour looked a little hollow at times. It didn't look like it had a very strong sense of what it was trying to achieve, and we've got to get back to that. Let's give people really strong and positive reasons to vote Labour, and that's what I can bring.
You did just touch there on Labour looking hollow, so to speak, before. You have spoken a lot of the mistrust in New Labour. How would you try and rebuild that relationship between politicians and the Welsh public?
Well, I think it was felt really keenly here in Wales, some of the way New Labour operated, this very London-centric top-down style. It did demoralise people at the Labour grassroots here in what has traditionally been one of our strongest heartlands. And, people have really got to learn that style of politics has got to come to an end. So it's about trusting our members, respecting the devolution settlement, building on the devolution settlement, giving more power to the party here in Wales, getting that relationship right. I mean, I'm not a London-centric person in any way, shape or form. I'm running my leadership campaign from Manchester, so I hope that gives people in Wales some confidence that it won't be more of the same if they were to elect me as their leader. I do come from a different perspective on life. And yes, I think all of that style did alienate people. The Welsh public looked at times and thought, well, they're out of touch, they're elitist, they're not really addressing our concerns, and that's what we've got to put right. We've got to show that our hearts are in the right place, our priorities are the right ones, and that we have a strong vision of a fairer future here in Wales, and that's what I will bring forward as Labour leader.
And just one cheeky question, who do you see as your biggest rival for the leadership campaign?
Well, that's a good question. I'm currently in third place, but a strong third place, and gaining ground all the time. And my campaign really began after the election. I was fighting an election for Labour right up until then. I wasn't running my leadership campaign, but in that short time, we've really built huge momentum. And the really positive thing from my point of view is that if people look at the deputy leadership contest in 2007, Harriet Harman was in an almost identical position to me at this stage of the race, and the media weren't predicting at all that she would come through. So there's a good omen for me in that. The biggest rival, well, obviously there are two front runners, and they're both very talented people, but I believe I've got more to offer. I've got a package of policies, a philosophy that I think speaks to the Labour mainstream, but also I'm a people person. I think that's what the People's Party needs.